Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Draft Countdown Podcast. I'm your co-host, Brian Bosarge. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Shane P. Hallam. Shane, we are 182 days, 22 hours, 59 minutes, and 44 seconds away from the 2023 NFL Draft.
Yes, it's coming up. We're already zooming through the college season, through the NFL season, and I'm excited. We're talking some offensive line tonight, which is always fun. So it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, it is. And if you've got any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat. If you're on Twitter, go to @DraftCountdown, ask your questions there. We will answer them. Or if you're a member of the Draft Countdown Discord, go in there and answer your questions. We will answer them there as well. And if you're not a member of the Draft Countdown Discord and would like to be, go to draftcountdown.com. It's on the toolbar at the top there, and you can join. We have a lot of fun in there, especially on game days, Shane. So everybody needs to join up on the Discord.
Yeah, I would love to get more people in there to talk on Saturdays, Sundays, all the days in between. It's been fun. We're growing a little bit, so hope to see you there.
We sure are. But Shane, this has been a big week. We normally talk about injuries and stuff that's not fun, but we've had a lot of trades. A lot of trades in the NFL, and one took place. Was it after Sunday night or something? No, anyway, it wasn't long after. We didn't get to discuss it last week, I don't believe. Did we?
Yeah, I don't think that we did. Yeah, I think it happened.
Well, anyway, but he's in San Francisco now, and Carolina got a heap of draft picks for him, a 2023 second, third, and fourth, and a 2024 fifth-round pick goes to the Panthers for Christian McCaffrey. So I guess twofold here, Shane. What's his impact on the 49ers this year? And then do you think that was a satisfactory return for McCaffrey?
I think he has a decent impact this year. This is another weapon more than just a running back. I think a lot of people have criticized the trade, like, why you don't trade that for a running back? And I get it. I probably wouldn't have made it, but he is a pass catcher. He is an offensive weapon like they've used Deebo Samuel. I think in a few weeks, the NFC is pretty bad. San Francisco will make the playoffs. I think in a few weeks we'll see what they're going to do with him. If I'm Carolina, I love this deal. It's a lot of money. I know they're going to sacrifice the money this year. Like, who cares? You're going to pay it anyway, right? It'll be off the books next year, and you're getting a ton of draft picks to rebuild. You already fired your coach. Might as well have a little bit of a fire sale if you can.
May not, like you said, may not be the only player on that team that gets moved before Is it Tuesday's the deadline?
Yeah, I think we're coming up on it on Tuesday, so we'll see.
McCaffrey wasn't the only running back that got moved. The Jets were kind of spurned on Breece Hall out for the season after an injury Sunday, but the Jets they're winning, so didn't want to see anything hurt them. They flip a fifth-round pick in next year's draft to Jacksonville to get running back James Robinson, who had kind of been supplanted there by last year's first-round pick Travis Etienne. So Jacksonville, get what they can for a guy who was undrafted. The Jets get a good running back that can I feel like this is a win-win.
I do too. I think if you're the Jets, Michael Carter, you don't want him to carry the whole load. You and I both know how good he is. We scouted him. I think he'll still have a big role there. I love James Robinson. You can search on the site for. I posted my article that I posted back when he was draft eligible, comparing him to David Johnson. The Achilles injury has slowed him down, but we'll see what happens. I think the biggest detriment to this is Urban Meyer. I think it's basically like, why did you draft Travis Etienne? There's no need to have both of those running backs on the team. They don't need both. I think Doug Peterson and company realized that, and Trent Baalke realizes that. So Etienne's looking good this week, and Robinson will help the Jets. I think it's a good deal.
Another trade, Dallas will be acquiring defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins and a 2024 seventh-round pick. The Raiders get a 2023 sixth-round pick in exchange here. The Raiders, they are not in a good way right now, so they seem to be dumping a few pieces here as well. But a good depth piece for Dallas.
They need to stop the run, and that's what Jonathan Hankins does well. And honestly, I think the Raiders have a lot of riches on the defensive line. I think that's their strongest point. They really couldn't get him on the field, so you might as well take a pick for him if you can.
And lastly, today, Philadelphia acquires defensive end Robert Quinn from Chicago for a 2023 fourth round pick. So Quinn on the move. Philadelphia, they're going all in on their undefeated so far here. They're adding some pieces. Chicago eats the money this year. Philadelphia basically can void the last 2 years of the deal if need be. So this is a pass rush piece for this season only, I would imagine. And Philadelphia gets the piece. Thoughts on this trade?
I think it's a potential steal for Philly. I know he's 32, but Robert Quinn's still good. You're getting a position of need, a rotational pass rusher who can get after the quarterback. And I really like it for the Eagles. I get it for the Bears. They're not going anywhere this year, but it's a really good move, kind of like what Von Miller last year, for the Rams. I think very similar position here.
Speaking of pass rushers that could be on the move, rumors circulating that former top 5 pick Bradley Chubb could be on his way out of Denver within the next few days. Are you buying that? And if so, what kind of return can Denver expect here for Chubb, who I imagine is want to get paid wherever he goes?
I could see it. I think he's been a little bit disappointing. Not that he's been bad. I think Bradley Chubb is a good pass rusher, a good player. I think there was hope that he would be this elite takeover for Von Miller type, and he really hasn't been. I still think you're hoping maybe for a second or third round pick, probably a third at this point, because the team's going to have to pay him, like you said. So that's going to factor in. I'm interested to see, because I don't know if Denver is going to be wholesale selling guys yet, especially when it looks like Nathaniel Hackett might have to coach for his job. Like, you probably want players there to try to win these games.
Also rumored from Denver are wide receivers Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, both rumored to be on the block as well. I saw that earlier. Anybody else you think potentially could get moved between now and Tuesday?
I really wonder if we see some wide receiver trades happen. I think we have a lot of teams that need that. There's been some rumors, and I don't think the rumors are the teams are trying to trade these players, but that teams are calling to see a guy like Brandon Cooks in Houston or Chase Claypool in Pittsburgh that might be in excess for bad teams that want to move them. I feel like we're going to see one wide receiver trade happen. Maybe it's the Packers. Maybe it's one of these teams that have had an injury like the Chargers, and see if someone trades for a receiver here coming up.
It's going to be interesting. We don't usually see this kind of activity within the week of the NFL trade deadline, so it's kind of fun to see.
Since they backed it up, it's been more. It's been a lot more fun. I'll say that.
Teams at this point know that they're out by this point now. Whereas before, when it was after week 5 or week 6, I mean, everybody still had a puncher's chance. Now, if you're 1-6 or whatever, let's just go get this over with. Let's move on to college football now, and let's look back at week 8. Shane, we both watched a fair amount of football last weekend, and I watched a couple of quarterbacks I could have talked about here in my offensive player. One I'm not going to because I refuse. The other that I will talk about is another guy who is seen to have a sort of rebirth potentially as an NFL draft prospect, and that's LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. Phenomenal game against Mississippi last week. Completed 75% of his passes, 369 yards of total offense, 5 touchdowns. Looked really good throwing the football. They finally started getting Kayshon Boutte back involved a little bit there in the offense, and lo and behold, hey, they dropped 45 points in that football game. So Jaden Daniels revival here, Shane. What do you think?
He's looked good after the beginning of the year. He couldn't throw and hit the broadside of a barn, and now they've really built the offense around him. I'll say we all make fun of Brian Kelly. We have a group chat. We make fun of Brian Kelly plenty in his Southern accent. But one thing I'll give him credit for is he molds his system to the players. Like, he will change what he does, and we're seeing that at LSU. It took a little while, but we're seeing the offense be molded to Jaden Daniels, to Kayshon Boutte, to the offensive line, and that's why I think LSU is on the uptick here. So NFL prospects, I don't know, but I mean, I said that about Bo Nix at the beginning of the season, so I'll never say never with any of these guys.
That game in a couple of weeks is getting a lot more interesting now. They host Alabama on a Saturday night in Baton Rouge 2 weeks, or about a week and a half from now. Who stood out to you on offense this week, Shane?
I have a couple good offensive guys, but I think I got to go with my guy that we've talked about on the podcast often is Andre Icevas, the wide receiver from Princeton, lit up Harvard. As long as you're not watching, Brian, he's lighting it up. 9 passes, 176 yards, a long touchdown. I mean, he was dominant. He was open more than that, and they couldn't get the ball to him. Track star, shot put star, who is big, long, looks like an NFL player. And last year it was like, oh, wow, this guy's really athletic. And this year this guy's a really good receiver. And I think when you see that transition happen, then you start talking NFL. I think he's the Christian Watson of this year. I don't think he'll go that high. He's playing in the Ivy League. But I think third round, I think is a real possibility.
Yeah, I included him on my list of players I think will be at the Senior Bowl last week. I watched him 3 catches, 39 yards. You watch him, he almost goes for 200. It's damn the luck, I guess.
And a couple, Tucker Kraft went on. I had a couple these small school guys going off. So,
not the long snapper from Weber State, though.
the 4, I did not include in my article. 4 safeties for Weber State. It was
all on snaps, punt snaps.
I did not watch that game live, so I skipped the punts, and then you tweeted that to me, and I went back and I watched it.
And didn't they not lose the game by like 5 points or something? And they
it was
points on safeties,
right? So they like probably would have won that game. They lost. I think they lost by 5. I think that's what it was. 6 points. So without the safeties, they may have won it.
My defensive player that I watched this week, let's stay home here, and let's talk about South Carolina cornerback Darius Rush. We talk a lot about Cam Smith, and rightfully so. Cam Smith is very, very good. But I wanted to bring up Rush because he's getting targeted a lot, and he's rising to the challenge. He's got great length, 6'2", 196. Against Texas A&M, the big win last week, 8 tackles, 6 solos, so he can play plays the run well there. Forced a fumble, broke up a pass, and had an interception that he returned for 63 yards for a near touchdown. So Darius Rush, I know he's got some fans there. I don't think he's a top 100 guy, but 4th, 5th, 6th round, I think you get a quality corner that can come in and play ball for you next year.
And my Senior Bowl prediction article on the defense is coming out on Friday, and he's on the list. I think he's worthy of that with how he's played this year. Darius Rush, he's physical. Like, he's a tough player. He's one of those day 3 corners that you can see just sticking around the NFL. Injuries happen. Darius Rush is in the game. You hear his name a couple times. He's not bad. I think that's his NFL future.
He's a lot more fluid to me than Israel Mukuamu was a couple of years ago. That was my knock on him, is he just couldn't turn, which is why he's played safety in the NFL when he has played. But he couldn't make the turn. I do not think Darius Rush has that issue. I think he's fluid. I don't know how well he'll test, but we'll see. Big fan there of how he's played this season. Who's your defensive guy this week, Shane?
So my defensive player is the edge from Northwestern, Adetomowa Adebalware, and he went up against Jalen Duncan, the offensive tackle from Maryland. And I tweeted, if you ever watch a matchup and you're like, both these guys are good. Sometimes it's how you usually is a winner and a loser. I thought both of them won. I mean, there were some reps. Jalen Duncan took him out. But Adebawore is raw. He's not a player that I know exactly what he's going to do in the NFL, but strong, athletic, plays really smart, good spin move. He beat Duncan a couple times and made an impact in that game. They moved him around a little bit. He had 2 sacks. I wonder if he's a 4th-round pick that a team takes and just tries to 3rd down, put him on the field, let him pin his ears back, and get to the quarterback. Just an intriguing player for me. So he's by him and Duncan highlighted my article, but he's my defensive player this week.
Yeah, not a whole lot of positive from Northwestern football this season. But good to see that they have some trench players, and we're going to talk about another one here right now, Shane. As we move on we're going to talk about the top 5 offensive linemen available for the 2023 NFL Draft. We're lumping all of them together here, but we're mostly going to talk about tackles. Only one guard between the both of us here in the top 5, which is fine. But we're going to talk about him here. And number 1 on my list, number 2 on yours is Northwestern offensive tackle Peter Skoronski. We have talked about him before, 3rd-year player. We feel like he's going to be similarly compared to his former Northwestern alum there, Rashawn Slater, because he's going to get dinged for arm length. A lot of people think he could move inside the guard. So that is something that I guess it'll be different on every team's boards. But is that how you feel about Skoronski, and how have you felt watching him this year since you watched him just last week?
I think that's why I have him 2nd instead of 1st. It's just I'm not sure where he fits because of the arm length, because of the size. If you watch him play for his freshman year, true sophomore year, this year as a 3rd-year player, every single year, every single game, it's really hard to find massive mistakes, mental errors, hand placement errors. I mean, he is almost flawless in technique from day one at 18 years old. That's usually a good sign for the NFL if you can do that. So I think he's going to be a good player. I think, like Rashawn Slater, I think Peter Skoronski is going to be a good player. I think he can play tackle, but I think there is some worries about the upside against top-tier NFL pass rushers. If he's playing a top 5 guy in the league, I think he could struggle. Outside of that, I think he's going to have a good career.
The old rule of thumb used to be 34-inch arms. That's kind of been moved back to 33 now, I think, is the bare minimum. So combine, I guess, will be when we'll see that measurement for Skoronski. Number 3 on my board, number 1 on yours, and because you've watched him a lot more than I have, and that's Paris Johnson Jr., Ohio State 3rd-year player, 6'6", 315. Big guy there, Shane, and but hasn't started a whole lot of games, right?
Well, right. Last year he played guard for them and kicked outside to tackle in the bowl game, and then he's been starting at left tackle for Ohio State all this season. So he's had some experience, but not at the offensive tackle position. Definitely versatile, 5-star prospect. Paris Johnson has the upside. I think when you watch Paris Johnson, you see the athleticism, the footwork there.
Never mind. I'm thinking.
All right. I was like that.
I had an anecdote in my head, but that was another player that played at Ohio State last year. Never mind.
But yeah, I mean, I think the athleticism is there, the strength's there. He's just not super consistent. Like Skoronski's super consistent, and Paris Johnson, there's some bad reps in there, and there's some incredible reps against some great Big Ten pass rushers. I like the upside as a left tackle. That's why I have him at 1.
That's fair. Number 2 on my board, number 3 on yours is Jalen Duncan from Maryland. We just talked about him and his matchup against Northwestern last week. The times I've watched Duncan, he's big, physical, nasty player. I don't foresee length or athleticism being an issue for Jalen Duncan at all. 6'6", 320. He can move. Like I said, he plays nasty, man, and that's what I like in my guys out there on the left side. So I'm a big fan of Jalen Duncan. I know you are too.
Yeah, Gets those flags sometimes, playing a little too nasty sometimes.
I do tend to like those guys a bit too much.
He's had his fair share of personal fouls, but I mean, he against Northwestern, he drove a guy to the sideline on a plow. I was like, what? My God, he's just can put these defenders on skates because he will give that 110% strong as an ox. Usually don't think Maryland offensive tackles, but here we are. He's got it all.
Number 4 on my board, not in your top 5 here. I'm not sure where he's at on your tackle board, but is Penn State Olu Fashanu, another guy not dissimilar from Paris Johnson, third-year player, 6'6", 321. He also doesn't have a whole lot of starts under his belt, but his technique in the games that I've watched looks pretty flawless for a guy who doesn't have the amount of starts that you would expect. And but I really like him, and he's got another big test coming up this week against Ohio State. So, and I'll be watching that game, which we'll get to later. So anxious to see how he continues to grow and elevate and gets to that, see where he finishes the process.
I have him at 12. I think I'm just being cautious at this point. We'll see how he does this week. I thought the Michigan game, some ups and downs, but like you said, very consistent player, kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think a lot of people had him high on their boards coming into the season, but filling in that left tackle position that was left at Penn State is a pretty good spot there. And they have athletes all the time. The Nittany Lions know how to train them up. So,
which I just assume he's going to test well.
Whenever that RAD score is going to be in the green. It is.
Definite green there. Number 4 for you is another Buckeye, Shane. We don't want you to get accused of being a homer here. But I know, and I did not have him on my Senior Bowl list, and I'm going to take the L on this one, willing to bet, based off some tweets that got fired off after I put that out. But it's Dawan Jones from Ohio State. And this is a big boy, Shane. I don't know if he's going to come in at this size, but we've got him listed here at 6'8", 360. I don't know if 360 is a good weight. I'd assume that's going to come down a little bit, but if he is a legit 6'8", 340, that's a big man.
Yeah, I mean, that's still pretty good. I thought last year watching him, I was like, I don't know if this guy's an NFL player, and he's gotten so much better at understanding space, understanding where the defense is. And he's athletic. He can move for that 340, 360, whatever he is. You have a guy this big that can move like that. If the right team drafts him, he's going to be successful. So I think he's going to be a top 5 offensive lineman taken in the draft.
Number 5 for you here is a guy I've got to get more, got to watch him some more here. It's Broderick Jones from Georgia, third year guy. I haven't really focused on him so much when I watched Georgia this year. 6'4", 315. Tell me about Broderick Jones and what I have missed, I guess.
I mean, when you're the blindside blocker for the defending national champs, it's pretty good. And he's coming in this year, he's just like a long player who shuffles really well. I do like the nastiness in the run game. He has sprung some big runs off that left side. Georgia seems to be favoring that a little bit more with Kenny McIntosh and some of their faster running backs. He doesn't get his hands off you. Like once he gets a hold of you, you're done. I really like him. It's always tough with some of the underclassmen, where they line up, are they going to declare? But I'm a fan.
Number 5 for me is the only guard we're going to talk about here, or guy who is currently playing guard, I should say. And that's Florida guard Osiris Torrance. Comes in at number 5 offensive lineman for me. 4th-year player, 6'5", 335. Transfer from the University of Louisiana. We really liked him a lot last year. I did as well. Saw him play a couple of times in person. And he was dominant in the Sun Belt, and he hasn't missed a beat coming up to the SEC. He's been equally as dominant this year for the Gators. And Torrance is in the run game. Not many peers there inside at that position. And I think he is a pretty good pass blocker as well. So I think I don't know if he's going to be a first round pick, but I think Osiris Torrance probably in that upper to mid second round area, especially if he has a good week in Mobile.
And they desperately missed him against LSU. Florida could have used him in that game. He's coming back against Georgia, big test, but the like you said, the run blocking is phenomenal. And he moves with Anthony Richardson. He's able to kind of stick that out, stick with his guy a lot more. I really like him. I think him and my top guard, Nick Broker from Mississippi, I think they are the clear top two for me.
Yeah. Well, let's move on now to week 9, Shane, and I believe we have 15 games this week. That sounds right. 15 games this week. Starting tomorrow night, this will be my weekly jaunt into the Sun Belt as the University of Louisiana take on the Southern Mississippi Golden Eagles, the pride of Dwayne. They're our regular listener here on the podcast. 6:30 p.m. on ESPN2. This game, Southern Miss has been playing great defense. Not a whole lot on the prospect side, on that side of the ball, but Louisiana has struggled this year. A lot of their players transferred out when Billy Napier left, not leaving the cupboard too wide open, so to speak. But I really like Jason Brownlee, the Southern Miss wide receiver. I wish they had a quarterback that could throw the football and get him the ball consistently. That has been their problem this year. They have won games this year despite the quarterback play that they've gotten.
Yeah, they have. And I think Frank Gore Jr., I should put the junior on there because his dad's still trying to play football.
One of the few times where that's deserved whenever we talk about these guys. You see such and such junior, such and such third, and you have no idea who senior or junior was. But this one, you do know who Frank Gore Sr. is.
Yeah, I write for Steel City Insider for 24/7 Sports, and Jim Wexel, my boss there, gets so mad at me if I put Junior the third on a player that you don't know who like senior is. He's like, no one cares. Like, leave it off unless we know who senior is. So I always do that now. But yeah, I mean, Frank Gore Jr. is going to play in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be an outstanding running back, but he'll get on a team for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Tomorrow night, Shane, you'll be watching Virginia Tech and NC State, 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. And if you don't watch any other player in this game, Shane, I told you to watch this guy, cornerback Shamari Connor, Virginia Tech. I and Jim Nagy, both big fans of this guy. So NC State, no Devin Leary out for the season, but they've got some stud linebackers. There's 3 linebackers on their team that could be playing in the NFL.
Yeah, I think they have some guys, like you said, they're going to get drafted third day. Drake Thomas, Peyton Wilson, very intriguing. I like Virginia Tech. Also, you talked about Shamari Connor, who's a good player. But I think corner on the other side, NC State, Sheheim Battle, is a player I liked a lot a couple years back and has really played up to his potential this season.
So, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Shamari Connor. Shane, I'm going to finally get to watch Washington State. We've been talking about it for weeks. 9 p.m. tomorrow night on FS1 Utah at Washington State. I've watched Utah a few times this year. But for me, I'm literally choosing this game just so I can finally get to watch Dayon Henley, the linebacker that you have talked glowingly about these last few weeks, and I guess to see if Cameron Ward has anything worth watching.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for Cameron Ward, but his arm's good. I'm interested to see if he can bounce back in this one. I love Dayon Henley. We'll see how he plays against a Utah offense that's pretty good. Maybe even we'll have to cover Dalton Kincaid, their tight end, at some point. It might be a tough ask for Henley there, but if you get that matchup a couple times, that'd be fun.
Yeah, that's game's Friday. I had to make sure. Friday night, 7 p.m., Shane, you'll be watching on ESPN2, East Carolina at BYU. We've both watched BYU several times this season, but neither of us have watched East Carolina. So let's talk about them a little bit and what players for the Pirates there intrigue you. And why is it wide receiver C.J. Johnson?
CJ Johnson's had a wild career because as a freshman, I thought this guy was going to be an NFL stud, future first round pick. Fell off, got suspended. He's had a ton of problems. Then came back year 4. Here he goes. He's really performing well. Holden Allers there, their quarterback, seems like he's been around forever. I really like Keaton Mitchell, their running back. If he plays in this game, he's intriguing, and I think Ryan Jones, their tight end, could be an H-back, 6th, 7th rounder.
Well, we'll see how they do. Like I said, first time we've talked about them. Another team that doesn't seem like we've talked about, or teams that we've talked about very often, is Boston College or UConn. And Shane, Saturday morning at 11 a.m. on CBS Sports Network, you'll be watching this game. I did watch UConn earlier this season. There isn't much there. But Zay Flowers, Boston College, is a stud and could be drafted high in the 2nd round, I think, probably his ceiling. But let's talk about Phil Jurkovec there. He was considered a prospect there at one point, but that's kind of – that blooms off that rose.
Yeah, I think it's gone. Yeah, he had the injury, came back last year, looked bad. It's like, okay, it was an injury, and then this season's just been mediocre at best, unfortunately. Who knows? He could stick around for another year and do some things. I'm going to challenge you on Zay Flowers. I think his ceiling could be a 1st-round pick. I think there's a world out there. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible that he challenges at the end of the 1st. He's going to work out well. He has the experience, high character player. So I'm a big Zay Flowers fan. Every time I watch him, I'm like, I got to move him up another spot, and I just keep moving him up spots in my rankings.
I don't hate it.
Could happen.
11 a.m. on ABC. I'll be watching for the first time this season Scott Wright's Notre Dame Fighting Irish, as they'll be playing at Syracuse in – I don't know, it's not called the Carrier Dome anymore, but I'm not bothering to learn what they call it. So Notre Dame not having the season they thought they would have. They've got some intriguing players. Definitely kind of want to watch I assume Jarrett Patterson's playing, or is he still hurt?
I think he's supposed to play in this game. I don't think it's guaranteed, but I think he's supposed to play.
Maybe he'll play. I'm really, I've talked about Sean Tucker, and I was cussing the television watching their game against Clemson on the background is, why is Sean Tucker only carrying the ball 5 times? Allegedly, he was dinged up. I don't care. He's averaging 10 yards a carry. Get him the football. Maybe you beat Clemson. But anyway, so intrigued by that game. Intrigued to see Notre Dame for the first time this year. They've got players that are going to be drafted. So and the guy from Northwestern that transferred, the safety, how's he been this year, Shane?
Up and down. I think he started slow. I think Brandon Joseph, their safety, started off slow. He was on my stock up list a couple weeks back. I think he's getting better, and you're seeing Notre Dame come through. Even like Jack Kaiser, their linebacker, starting to play better, potential NFL draft pick. And Syracuse, watch out for offensive tackle Matthew Bergeron. He almost made my top 5 offensive linemen for today. Had a rough game against Clemson, but before that, I think was absolutely dominant this season.
Guy projected to play in the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to be one of those guys that you're going to see working out at multiple positions when he comes down. Offensive tackle, offensive guard. I think he's going to work out there. Probably the game with maybe the most prospects in it this week is a game I'll be watching, Ohio State at Penn State, 11 a.m. on Fox. We talked about it earlier. You want to see these trench battles and how they hold up. Zach Harrison, the edge rusher for Ohio State, seems to have, I guess, come back to life a little bit. How does he do against Olu Fashanu there? Let's see that matchup a little bit. Let's see Penn State's guys go against these offensive tackles for Ohio State. DeJuan Jones, a guy I haven't watched a whole lot of. I'll get to watch him this week and see how he performs. So, like I said, a lot of players, in this game. This is going to be one of those tapes that you probably come back to watch multiple times in the offseason, especially for some of these Penn State guys to see how they play.
Look, I'll be watching too. I know, if not for the site, but as a Buckeye alum, this is a big one. I'm really interested. We got two former NFL guys' sons against each other. Joey Porter Jr. is going to go up against Marvin Harrison Jr., who's not eligible for this class, but Porter, a potential first-round pick. And watch out for Ohio State running back Mayan Williams. They're kind of backup, quote unquote. He's made the Doak Walker finalist list, despite Travion Henderson being there. He's fun to watch, and I think they're going to be a lot of physical running from Ohio State.
You agree with Dane Brugler that Marvin Harrison Jr. would be wide receiver 1 if he was eligible in this class?
He is my wide receiver 1 for next year. And I think right now, yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Jackson Smith-Njigba play. I think Marvin Harrison, number 1 on the freak list for Bruce Feldman, and he's performing. I don't know how you can get much better than that.
Yeah. This is my first time watching Ohio State this year. So
all right. Hopefully they don't disappoint you. We'll see what happens.
11 a.m. FS1, Shane. You'll be watching Oklahoma at Iowa State. I feel like this is the first time we've talked about Iowa State this year. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But Oklahoma, I want to talk. Tell me about their center, Andrew Raym. There, I know you're high on him or have been. What's his story this year?
Yeah, he's one of those guys I was high on coming into the year, and it has not worked out, right? I think we all have those players. I'm like, all right, I think he's going to take a big step and get better, and I think he got slightly worse as a third-year player, so I've knocked him down in my center rankings. Just inconsistent leverage, balance has not been there. I also think Anton Harrison, their left tackle, has probably been the best offensive lineman who's taken a step forward this season and played really well for Oklahoma. And Iowa State has some players too. I mean, Will McDonald, I think we've talked about in the past.
He is a consistent player. He's not inconsistent at all.
So that's going to be a fun matchup. I think that'll be a good matchup. And Xavier Hutchinson, Iowa State's receiver, really breaking out this year, could be a potential third-day pick.
2:30 p.m. on ESPN, Shane. I'll be watching Cincinnati for the first time this season. They're at UCF. And did I read that was it Ben Bryant started last week at quarterback? Ivan Pace Jr. has had a big year for them this year, the linebacker, so anxious to see him. And been a huge fan of their tight end, Josh Wiley, and have been for a few seasons now. UCF, I mentioned a few weeks ago, I think Isaiah Bowser could be in that role similar to that Xander Horvath's having as a rookie for the Chargers. I think you could see him get some play there. And their offensive tackle, Tylen Grable, could be the answer to a trivia question here later that we're going to talk about. Not one of my guesses, though, Shane.
There you go. I think Cincinnati is interesting. Ivan Pace, like you said, transferring from Miami of Ohio. You never know how that goes moving up like that sometimes. So it's interesting. And I think UCF's offensive line, they have some players. It's a good squad.
They do have a bad mother on their offensive line there, Samuel Jackson there. 3 p.m. on the SEC network, Shane. And since South Carolina's winning, I've just decided I'm going to keep watching them until they lose. So, and I am wearing my South Carolina shirt this week in honor of the South Carolina Gamecocks being ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 2018, Shane. Well, how about that?
That's exciting for you. I'm proud of South Carolina for making it happen.
Well, yeah, a few guys on Missouri to watch this week. Their edge rusher, Trajan Jeffcoat, been around a little while. Like to see how he plays. And DJ Coleman, a transfer up from Jacksonville State, another edge guy. See if he does anything at all this week.
Missouri's best prospect's their kicker, Harrison Mevis.
Okay. I don't think he's a better kicker than Mitch Jeter. What do you think about
that? We'll see. We'll see which one gets drafted higher in the
South Carolina players talk about. We talked about Marshawn Lloyd off the air a little bit before we came on, and he's finally coming around as one of the top running backs in the SEC this year. But I got to talk about Zach Pickens, and we've talked about him a lot before. And man, this guy is he's good, Shane. And when he is on, when he is 100% engaged, he's hard to block.
Yeah, look, I loved him coming out of high school. I thought he was going to be a big time NFL prospect and has kind of lived up to that. And going back to school, playing this year, I imagine he'll be at the Senior Bowl. I think you're going to see that athleticism that has worked in the SEC for years. That's hard to do.
If he does indeed come to the Senior Bowl, he's going to be the talk of it, and the one-on-ones. He's not going to get blocked very often. I'm just going to say that.
All right, look, I think it's a bold prediction. Let's see what happens.
Pac-12 Network, Shane, you and 14 of your friends get to watch Southern Cal in Arizona at 6 p.m. Arizona, we haven't spoke much of them this year. We have spoke of the Trojans several times. So Arizona here, their edge rusher, wide receiver Jacob Cowing. I swapped in last minute swap. I put him in the Senior Bowl predictions. There, the UTEP transfer.
He's good. He is so athletic. It's wild. And I wasn't sure if it'd translate, and then it's just that he's absolutely been dominant for them. Jaden DeLora, the quarterback, is kind of that Mike Leach style while he came from Washington State. Just throw it short and let Jacob Cowing do the work. I like Jordan Morgan, their offensive tackle, as well. His year's been up and down. So I think Arizona, not my lock of the week, but I think they're going to keep it close in this game against Southern Cal.
I like it. 6:30 p.m. Shane on ABC. You'll be watching Michigan State and Michigan. Not the season the Spartans. I think we're hoping to have. Hasn't been good at all for those guys. Who are some of the top players for Michigan State that you think are going to, could be NFL players here? We've talked about Michigan a fair amount.
Yeah, I like their linebacker, Jacoby Windman. I think he's been all over the field. He's trying to do everything. That's he's probably the guy that's impressed me the most. I do like Jaden Reed, their wide receiver. It's hard sometimes. He's open. He's not getting the football. But yeah, Michigan State, it has been just a rough season for them.
He was the one I subbed out.
Jacob
Cowing in.
All right. Fair enough.
Windman was a transfer up, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying. I can't remember where he came from, but was not someone that I had like super on my radar coming into the season. UNLV, looking that up. So I didn't have him on my radar, but he's been good.
I've always liked their linebacker, Corvarius Couch, Tennessee transfer. I have been a fan of his. 7 p.m. on the ACC network, Shane, I'll be watching for the first time the Pitt Panthers this season as they take on North Carolina. I know he had the big game, Israel Abanaconda.
There you go. Yeah.
Had the big game earlier this season, went for plus 300. So it'd be anxious to see him.
Only 6 touchdowns in that game.
Well, we all have bad days.
Yeah.
Anxious to see Habakkuk Baldonado, their edge rusher, as well. And, they've got several other players. Carter Warren would have been in the Senior Bowl last year, but went back to school. I suspect that he will be in the Senior Bowl this year. I don't think much of their quarterback, Keaton Slovis.
It's been rough.
Yeah. North Carolina has a few players to watch, specifically wide receiver Josh Downs, stud player there, top 10 wide receiver prospect in this class, I believe. So anybody else in this game?
Yeah. I Pitt, John Morgan III, their edge rusher. He's good. They have a really good defensive front seven. I like Kalijah Cansey, the undersized defensive lineman. And North Carolina, they might have the top quarterback in 2024 in Drake May, potential to be the number one quarterback taken, number one overall pick type material to me as I've watched him this year.
Ahead of Caleb Williams?
I don't have that yet, but big difference in size between those two. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. 9:30 p.m. on FS1, Shane. I'll be watching, hopefully, Jake Hayner, but I doubt it. San Diego State at Fresno State. Hayner's been out for most of this season. So I don't know. Maybe he'll play, maybe not. Jalen Cropper, their wide receiver, pretty good prospect. San Diego State, maybe their best prospect is Jesse Matthews, wide receiver, more of a late day 3 guy.
I like Patrick McMorris, the safety for San Diego State as well. He's a physical player, really intriguing. And I don't know if Jake Hayner's going to play, but I think Vegas thinks he will. I think the line's like 14.5 in this game. So maybe you will get to
maybe
see.
They know.
Maybe they
know. They knew about Will Levis not playing against South Carolina, didn't they? When we were
that is true.
9:30 p.m. on ESPN. Shane, you'll be watching Stanford at UCLA. I feel like you talked about UCLA every week for the last 2 months.
Once again, they play like the only late game that ever, so you got to watch them.
We've also talked about Stanford a couple of times here recently. Any particular players maybe we haven't talk about Layatu Latu there, the edge rush from UCLA. He's come up in conversations here recently.
Yeah, I mean, he just has a great first step, gets around the edge, really good bend. He's been impressive. Even that Oregon game, he was starting to get some pressure, and I thought maybe could help UCLA come back. Him and Grayson Murphy, the North Texas transfer on the other side. Really good duo there for UCLA.
All right, so that's the 15 games we'll be watching this week. Shane, for the first time this season, we both took L's last week, and they weren't particularly good L's either. No. Both teams took it on the chin there. You had UCLA; they got smoked. I had Old Dominion; they got smoked. It was not a good week.
I'm mad. UCLA did not punt in that game. If they just could have gotten touchdowns instead of field goals, like what would have covered? So I was just angry.
Well, so 5-3-1 for each of us. We got to get it back this week, Shane.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm keeping it home.
The homer pick.
You know what? And
the homer
I
pick.
am doubling my normal bet that I put on these games. I doubled my bet this week. South Carolina, double lock of the week, -3.5 at home against Missouri. Lock it down, Shane. 6-3-1.
You're right. Vegas never wants people to bet on their hometown team because that's never their goal. The team that I consider it too. I mean, I think South Carolina is much better than Missouri. So, but Missouri kept it close to Georgia. You never know how this could go. You're going with a favorite. I'm going with a big underdog. I'm going Georgia Tech plus 24.5 at Florida State. Since Georgia Tech fired their head coach, they started on a 3-game winning streak. Their defense is still a little questionable, especially against the run, as we talked about against Pitt. But they pulled it out. I just think they're going to keep it close. Florida State has only covered that spread once this season. They've won by 30 points, I think, in one game. They're on a 3-game losing streak. So I think Georgia Tech's a better team now than they were early in the season when they got smoked every game. I think they lose by 3 touchdowns to cover the spread.
Shane getting a lot of points there.
I like a lot of points.
I don't hate that. To be honest, I don't. Shane, are you ready to play a game?
Yeah,
I don't know if this is going to be a weekly segment, but we're going to play a game called Guess Who Jim Nagy Was Cryptically Talking About. So during the Monday Night Football game this week, Jim Nagy tweeted out that he was watching a group of 5 right tackle while occasionally peeking at Monday Night Football, who will be a starting center in the NFL. Group of 5 right tackle who will be a starting center in the NFL. Now, our good buddy Eric Edholm replied that he thought it was Aaron Frost from Nevada. Now, unless Jim Nagy was watching old tape, which he could have been, Aaron Frost hasn't played this season. Plus, I think he was a left tackle last year at Nevada. So, Shane, we'll get a couple of guesses here. Who do you think that Jim Nagy was talking about?
Oh man, like it is difficult to guess because it's about who's playing right tackle for a G5, and they have to be able to play center, which I don't know. That's a tough projection always to make. It happens, but I think it's tough to see that. So I'll give you my number one pick, and that's Cooper Hodges, right tackle. We have him as a guard for Appalachian State. He's shorter. I think he fits the center mold. Very solid player. He's been a great run blocker. And your guy Cameron Peoples had the big rushing game behind Cooper Hodges on the right side. So I feel like if you're going to be impressed, that's my number one pick.
My number one pick, also from the Sun Belt Conference. I am going to go with a guy who I was impressed with earlier this season while watching. I was not impressed with watching that whole team last week as they cost me money. But I am going to go with the Old Dominion Monarch right tackle, Nick Saldiveri. Am I pronouncing it? Saldiveri. 6'5", 307, right tackle for the Monarchs. I have no idea if he can transition inside, but he's a group of 5 starting right tackle that I've watched. So he gets my guess. Shane, second guess for you.
All right. I'm going off the board because this guy is not in this draft. And that's why I think it's a cryptic tweet. I think perhaps this is a player for down the line for Jim Nagy. I'm going with Josh Simmons, right tackle for San Diego State, as my second choice. Maybe a guy we don't see for a while. 6'6", 305. He's high Pro Football Focus score, getting some publicity at San Diego State at right tackle. Maybe this is the guy that we see in 2 years at the Senior Bowl.
My second and final guess here, I will stick with this draft class and stick with another player in the Mountain West Conference, a guy who we were watching a little bit last year, and that is Fresno State right tackle Dante Bull.
That's a good one.
And that's a good name.
That's a
good name for an offensive lineman. He's a bit taller than what I think a center probably should be, but Ethan Pochik from LSU was 6'7". I didn't say it really worked out that well, but he was a center. So Dante Bull, 6'7", 326 is my second guess from Fresno State.
No, that's good. I also had Nick Saldiveri on my list too, so I'm with you there on that one.
Okay, so that's our two guesses. Maybe we'll get a little hint at some point, or maybe we'll just never find out.
We're never gonna. There's no way we're
never gonna find out who.
And you can ask Jim Nagy. He's not gonna remember in 3 months.
You're probably right. I need to strike on this while the iron's hot. I might have to put some feelers out to see if I can get some information. Okay, so let's go to some questions, Shane. We've got a couple in the chat here, and we got one on Discord. I don't think we got any on Twitter. Did we get any?
I do not think so, no.
Okay, so let's go to Sam here from our Draft Countdown Discord. Ask, who are your favorite day 1, 2, and 3 slot corners?
It's a really good question because I think slot corners are in demand, basically have the treatment of a starting big corner. And I think there's a lot of guys maybe that play outside in college that could go to the slot. Like I like Clark Phillips III from Utah, potential slot corner in the NFL. If we want to talk about a day 1 player.
I think Dan Smith could be in that mold too, South Carolina. He's playing he's playing a good bit of his snaps in the slot already for South Carolina this year.
So I mean that's an easy transition as well. I like guy I had on my stock up list this week, Jacorian Bennett from Maryland. I think he would be a good slot corner as well. Maybe that day 2 mold.
Day three guy that I like, and I've talked about it a few times on the podcast, is UCLA Stephen Blaylock. I think he could be a solid get on day three, special teams, slot corner, nickel guy, fourth round. I like Stephen Blaylock on day three.
Yeah, I mean, I think my day three is a slot guy that we've talked about before. TCU Travius Hodges Tomlinson, small, short playmaker. I think he's born to be a slot corner in the NFL.
He also any players that jump out on tape for being what Dan Campbell would describe as a kneecap biter. So I'm guessing Sam's a Lions fan.
He is. Yeah, I think he is.
Poor fellow.
It's rough. It's rough out on those streets there for them. I'll say a guy that comes to mind, maybe even with their second pick in the first round, Southern Cal defensive lineman Tuli Tupolatu. I'm gonna get that at some point. But he's a physical, nasty player, and the Lions need some help on that run defense. I mean, it is really bad.
Which is crazy considering the amount of capital they've spent in the last few years on that same position.
Yeah, 2 years ago they drafted a ton of guys, two guys high, and just hasn't worked out. So I like him. I like linebackers, a big need. Jack Campbell from Iowa. I would love to see him play for Dan Campbell.
Few questions here in the chat. Good buddy Nino there asked, what are our thoughts on Luke McCaffrey, Rice wide receiver? Is this former Nebraska quarterback Luke McCaffrey?
Yeah, former Nebraska quarterback, now Rice receiver, brother of Christian McCaffrey. Producing. I think he has a ton
I haven't watched Rice.
He has a ton of catches this year. I haven't watched him play. I remember watching him in Nebraska come in some trick plays running around. I was like, he's athletic. Like, he's good. Receiver's probably his best fit. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Stephen B asks, how the heck do we know what to make of CJ Stroud with so many weapons? I mean, this is simple to me. Joe Burrow at LSU, all the weapons he had. Tua at Alabama, the evaluations to me is the same. If they can't produce with those guys, then you worry. Right?
Yeah, then it's a big problem.
Then it's a problem. I don't think it hurts his evaluation that he has so many great players. Like I said, if CJ Stroud was struggling with those guys, then we've got an issue.
I think for me, really look at where is he putting the football, right? Like, is it where a lesser receiver could make the catch? You watch the Iowa game. He had an average game early. And then one drive, it was, sideline throw, perfect placement, touchdown to Marvin Harrison, was right in the breadbasket on the corner of the end zone, outside shoulder. I mean, NFL throw, where, yeah, Marvin Harrison's great. You could have put Luke McCaffrey back there, would have made that catch. I don't think it matters to me. I think CJ Stroud is a top quarterback prospect. He has a ton of production. I think there's always a worry. I think there's going to be a worry. There's going to be some helmet scouts that are worried about Ohio State quarterbacks or about the weapons. You're going to hear it, but I don't know. From everything I've seen, I feel like he's got the juice and he has the ball placement more often than not.
There is a discussion to have between him and Bryce Young. One we'll have later on down the road, I'm sure. I was having a conversation about it today with somebody else, but like I said, we'll save that for we'll save that money for another day. Stephen B also with the comment, Marshawn Lloyd coached by Marshawn Lattimore. He meant Marcus Lattimore. No, Marcus Lattimore was he had something to do with South Carolina a few years ago, some sort of outreach off the field position. He's actually coached by another really good collegiate running back, Montario Hardesty, is the South Carolina running back coach and a good recruiter there for the Gamecocks. But
I loved Montario Hardesty coming out of college. He just injuries, man. He was so good though.
Yeah, he is the South Carolina running back coach. Shane, final thoughts here. I had my Senior Bowl stuff go up last week. The offense. Years going with the defense this year with flip-flop roles from last year. We hit it about a 53% clip when it was all said and done last year. So hopefully maybe we can top that this year.
I think we will. And, you did better than I did last year. I think you'll continue to do well. You have a lot of experience with the Senior Bowl. I will be very happy to get offense back. I'll say that. Trying to do defense was a pain in the butt. But all that on Friday. Tomorrow, Brad's coming out with his top 10 quarterbacks. So some interesting names on that list.
It is some interesting names.
And which is great. I mean, that's why we're bringing different people on, different perspectives. And then Sunday, Miranda is talking about the NFL MVP race, which is exciting. And I'm trying. I did not bet on the MVP. I did bet Hendon Hooker for Heisman before the Alabama game. So that's the one I'm holding out hope for.
I am holding out hope for 2 straight South Carolina wins, and I'll be cashing a ticket on over wins for this year, as the over was 6. So just got to get a Missouri and a Vanderbilt win.
If you get that lock of the week, then this is a big one.
Cash money. That's going to do it for tonight. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you get notified when we go live with our podcast each and every week. If you listen to the audio version of the podcast, leave us a good review. Give us the old share and all that good stuff. Get the word out about the Draft Countdown podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Deep Fried Draft. Follow Shane on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam. Follow Draft Countdown on Twitter at Draft Countdown. And as always, go to draftcountdown.com for all of your NFL draft needs. For Shane, I'm Brian. Good night, everybody.